Hey folks, it's James Thomas, and today we're going to talk about time management. In his letter to the Colossians, the Apostle Paul instructed early believers to walk in wisdom, redeeming the time. Another translation says, live wisely among those who are not Christians, making the most out of every opportunity. In this video, I'm going to start by giving you a godly perspective of what time management is, and then offer you some helpful hints and tips for managing your time effectively. There are two key elements to time management, and they are, number one, identifying and knowing your values, and number two, aligning your daily life events and commitments to reflect those values. Now this could lead into a whole discussion on values, but that's a subject for another video. For now, let's concentrate on the fact that managing time means managing our stress. When our daily life events, whether they be a telephone conversation, a task at work, or an hour spent in front of the TV, do not align with our basic life values, or the values that we are called to have as Christians, then we feel a strain or a stress between what can be and what is, what should be happening in our life and what actually is happening in our life. Now, many of us may not be able to put our finger on the source of that strain or that stress. We may be so used to that conflicting feeling between what should be and what is that we no longer notice it. It's always there, eating away at our insides. But we can recognize that if we take a moment to be honest with ourselves and truly diagnose what's happening in our spirit. If we do not exercise our God-given control over daily life events, the events will begin to take over and control us. So time management is a series of small but consistent decisions to align our daily life events, or how we spend our time, with our deepest values. If, like many people, you're being controlled by the events in your life, this may seem like an overwhelming challenge. However, we can start living from an internal locus of control, living from our God-given core strength, rather than being tossed about by the cares and concerns of this world. This starts with a single, small decision about how we will spend the next moment. Starting this now can lead to developing good time management habits that will overwhelm and eclipse the bad ones that we've collected during our life so far. One good decision sets us up for another, creating positive momentum that will carry us upward, as long as our eyes are fixed on Christ, on His teachings, and on His values. As we begin this new habit of small, consistent decisions that align our life events with our values, keep one thing in mind. There are some life events that we cannot control. Don't give up hope, though. Even if it seems as if there are more uncontrollable events in our life than there are controllable ones, we can always control our response to those events. The key here is to choose godly response to inevitable or unchangeable events, rather than a knee-jerk human reaction to them. Remember the serenity prayer? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Well, practicing event control through consistent decisions in the things that look controllable, and having godly responses to events that look uncontrollable, will lead to a natural development of that wisdom. That wisdom to know the difference does not descend on us miraculously from the clouds. It is built through purposeful, guided practice of biblical principles. Here are some practical tips for effective time management. Divide your day into definable life events. Whether they're controllable or uncontrollable, these events each span a certain length of time during the day. Now you can use a scheduler to plot out these daily life events. This may be a system of lists like I've described in other places, or it may be a daily planner system from your local office supply store. You could also use a mobile scheduling device like a Palm or a BlackBerry, or you could use a desktop scheduling system like Microsoft Outlook, or you could use something online. I personally like to use Google's calendar system. It allows me to make changes to my schedule from anywhere where I have internet access, and it also allows me to schedule repeating events such as client meetings. I can also share calendars administratively between my wife, my personal calendar, and my work calendar, and it's a lot easier than it sounds. I don't recommend using a traditional wall calendar for your scheduling, because those little boxes for each day aren't big enough to hold an entire day's events, plotted out by the hour or by the minute. Now you're going to assign a letter ranking to every life event. Everything that you spend time doing gets a rank. A-level events are things that must be done. Child-care tasks, certain self-care tasks like going to the doctor, and things like paying bills. B-level events are things that you should do, like home maintenance tasks, maintaining relationships with friends, and taking the time to cook healthy meals. C-level events are things that you could do, like recreational activities, leisure shopping, watching television, or reading a good book. So you've got A-level events that you must do, B-level events that you should do, and C-level events that you could do, if you have the time. Now be honest with yourself as you're setting up this ranking system. Know the difference between necessity and leisure. Resist the temptation to bump a C-level event that you really enjoy up to an A or a B-level ranking. Now just get started by identifying the events in your life, giving them ranks, and keeping track of them. Do this for a couple of days until you have your system down, and then begin to take control by aligning the events to match up with your values. If reality and your values don't line up, then it's time for a value check, or a reality check. If an uncontrollable A-level event comes along and knocks a less important B or C-level event down to later in the day, or later in the week, or off your radar entirely, don't beat yourself up about it. Those things happen. This is life. Life is unpredictable, and life is sometimes disappointing. The important thing is how we respond when that happens to us. The small, consistent choices that we make to gradually align our life events with our values. We need to build some flexibility, some resiliency, some toughness into this attitude. If we're too rigid, then when change comes along, it's just going to snap us. It's just going to break us. So we need to be flexible enough to cope when things like this happen. Our lives are all about time. We live on a scrolling timeline, and we cannot turn back the clock. We cannot relive one single moment. After you've begun recording what you actually do during your days, stop to evaluate it. Are you spending too much time doing things that you don't enjoy? Start scheduling events that will lift your spirit and redirect your eyes to the Lord. Godly time management will lead away from a life of drudgery and aimlessness and toward a life of joy and fulfillment. Thanks for watching. Now start redeeming the time that you've been given.